So, hey, um, honestly, I didn't really expect to be making this video. It's probably gonna be a bit heavy, but for the past 3 to 4 months, or maybe a bit less, maybe like 2 months, I've been contemplating on turning 30. Right, right now I think I got maybe less than half a day left. Turning 30, and honestly, with how my 20s went. Um, yeah, I definitely didn't use my 20s to the best of my ability, or as or so I thought. Not trying to cope, but it is what it is, right? And a lot of things have been weighing, and I understand that it's probably pretty normal, even for people who've you know really capitalized in their 20s. But yeah, it's quite scary turning 30 with in my position with even not much to kind of show for it except for um, some kind of mental model that I've been building. Yeah, I guess the mental model. I mean, I kind of call it like letting things be exactly what they are, nothing less, nothing more. It's kind of what I've. That's kind of the conclusion that I've arrived based on everything that I've experienced I that has happened to me, and how I kind of picture everything around my life revolving around this idea, and how I think it's actually more applicable to just my life. It's probably applicable to a lot of current things that are going on, and maybe they could take some inspiration from the idea of letting things not be personal and kind of stay exactly what they are, right? um, I guess a very good example. Like, I watch some amount of Dr. K, and Healthy Gamer. If you don't know him, and he's just he's um, a pretty good, a really good psychiatrist, right? That has been posting content recently. For those of you who don't know who Dr. K is, online about mental health, especially for men's mental health, and he always has this. Um, I think he based his a lot of his videos. They kind of have this underlying theme, right? Which is about um, doing things in moderarity, like not going too overboard, not like restricting yourself. Like you're not trying to police yourself into being the sitting on the fence for everything, but it's more of like in a performative way, right? It's more of kind of like being your genuine self. Like obviously you're gonna have to like do some amount of analysis, right, in the beginning, when you face some kind of issue, but not letting that play in too much, right? Because then if you analyze stuff too closely, you become obsessively kind of attached to the idea of what's right and what's wrong, and that overboardedness results. I feel like it leads you down the path of being kind of radicalized, right? In a way where you're less likely to see the entire picture. Like even if originally your ideas are they come from a good base. Being radicalized, I feel like, is probably one of the worst ways to convince people of like to win people over of your ideology, right? Is to because it goes against the idea of the freedom of speech. But anyways, so yeah, the main I think concept about letting things be exactly what they are, nothing less, nothing more, is to kind of move away from the black and white thinking that like typically happens when you get increasingly, and I'm not saying like, oh, these people are mentally weak, right? Because like, okay, obviously I don't condone um violent protest, right? Or viciously attacking someone on the internet, or like kind of overplaying what or like what their performative morality is. um but in a way, I feel like the right way isn't to like just call them out, right? I feel like calling them out is good, right? Because we're bringing into light, or we're trying to say that, hey, what you're doing, you tone it down a bit, right? But I feel like if you actually want to solve that problem, is you kind of have to open some kind of discourse where they could probably be brought down a few notches. Because I mean, I feel like most of their feelings, right, like their negative feelings, uh, they kind of stem from not really knowing, the thing that they're protesting about in a full context, right? Like if you take ICE for an example, it's not that what they're saying is completely wrong, right? Like, yeah, like some people in ICE facilities are probably being unfairly treated, right? But don't go smashing everything in a protest. Like, it's probably not a great way to convince ICE to change, right? I'm not saying like your feelings are like not correct in some way. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't have to be that extreme, right? And, see what they do and kind of make a judgment for yourself. I mean, and this kind of thinking, right? Like, you you kind of have to deal with holding, how do I say this, like, very um like conflicting concepts at the same time, right? Like, for an example, like, it, I guess, like, if you watch like Asmongold's video on ICE, right? Like, and then Asmongold's video on like police brutality. In some videos where like they're literally showing like police body cam footages, especially for the video where I think someone in the UK got stabbed to death, and the police are like, the guy was obviously in the process of passing out, like dying, right? And the police is just like, nah, you didn't get stabbed. Like, obviously that's not a great look, right? You're just letting someone die. But in other videos, I kind of remember this, right? When he pulled a chatter up, it's like, hey, the chatter's like, police aren't really heroes. They're just trying to do a government job. Like, he has the ability to hold both of these concepts. It's not just one or the other, right? Like, you have one guy who's willing to let a victim die on the spot versus like other police officers who are risking their lives to do their jobs, right? They're different situations, completely different people, and they need to be analyzed with nuance. Like, I know I'm probably asking for a lot, and it is a lot, right? Because, like, why spend the time to develop this, non-black and white, like this gray thinking, or like this analysis of, or like a correct nuance and like specific analysis of a situation with like multiple um, morality compasses, or morality, you know, judgments, right? Rather than doing that, I could just go online and just say fuck ICE and let it be that, right? Like, which one is easier, right? So I know I'm asking for a lot, but it's oftentimes like the lack of that work that leads to, people being more radicalized, because I think it, like, at that point it matters less which side you're on and more how much, you know like how stubborn you are, right? Like it's not just being like normally stubborn, where you're in a debate, the guy's just saying nope, 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 I'm not going to agree with you, because like that's fine, it's just a debate, right? But like these carry kind of significant consequences where you have, like, obviously I don't really agree completely with like what President Trump has been doing, but like the guy's been trying, like, three assassination attempts within like 2 years. Like, what the fuck, right? This kind of nuance is what you need, right? It's because it's about putting things where they fit exactly, and it's about kind of not like expressing outrage in the form of abrasiveness, but like expressing outrage in such a way where the other party starts to see why you know why your point is correct, right? Because it's really hard to do, but I think it's worth doing because it bypasses all of kind of the bullshit, right? That's kind of been happening. It demystifies, right? Uh, like the event, right? It's like, let's just say if you have, I don't know, like, I'm like going on a tangent here, but like let's just say you have like someone that, like, when you compare yourself to, um that he's like just much better off, and then like the common response, right, is just he is him, right? It's just he is just doing the things much better than you just because he's that guy, right? But in reality, it's like a bunch of requirements, right? Like it's is he did he have a private tutor in, like, I don't know, whatever thing that you're competing him against since childbirth, right? Are his genetics more suitable for maintaining that type of performance? Let's just say swimming, for example. Like, is he tall? Does he have the correct power in his muscles? Did he start training really young, right? Or did he start getting formalized into kind of the swimming pipeline, right? When he was really young. And if he checks all that boxes, chances are he will be more successful than someone who doesn't check all these boxes. And like in that way, you're not, like, obviously I'm not trying to downplay like whoever's achievement it is, right? Like, he is him, right? He did get his achievements in one way or another, but like it kind of distances you away from, oh, he got there because he's just radically worth more as a person than you, rather than like, oh, okay, well, you got all of these qualifications that he has. Do you have them? And if you do, then chances are you will be probably in a similar position to what, like, to where he is, right? That's And that kind of understanding, it kind of goes back to like how you understand a problem, right? Like, it requires a lot of nuance, right? Because you're trying to hold opposite ideas, but in reality, you're kind of like trying to see the whole picture. Like, oh, okay, how did the situation actually happen? Where is my awareness going into all of this, right? How do I navigate these issues without being so radically positioned towards one side of the fence, right? Like, I'm not saying you can't support being liberal, or you can't support being ice, but like you kind of have to, like, draw the line from personal preference, right? Like, because there are people who are right leaning and left leaning, and for I guess, like, I'm talking way too much about politics, like, because I'm trying to make, um like, this part of the reason why I made this video was because like politics was one big thing. Um, I guess, and the recent internet culture has been one big thing that has been happening. But it's not the entire thing, right? Because like my idea of letting things be exactly what they are, as I said, I feel like it's like universally applicable, but it's more so seeing it in the context of political issues, and then experiencing it like firsthand, like developing it to kind of reframe what happened to me back then, right? Because like I've had several pretty bad relationships, and thinking about them in a more nuanced way. I'm not saying it's cope, right? I'm trying to like analyze it in such a way where I'm being fair to kind of both parties, or like I'm being fair to the situation, like while holding, obvious pain, right? Like it's not that I didn't cause the other party pain as well, but like when you have both, you know, people's pain, but then like inevitably it kind of just gets crushed, right? Because like who did the most wrong? Oh, it's entirely this guy's fault, right? In a relationship, right? Let's say like, oh, she cheated, but he was like extremely abusive. It's like, okay, well, let's have a dick measuring contest. Was the cheating more, or was the abuse more? Right? It's not really like that. Like you can still do the measurement, but it doesn't mean like that. That level of cheating suddenly outranks this level of abuse, right? And then like whatever abuse that the other party had gets now added to, her ledger, right? It doesn't really work like that. Just as in politics, right? The ideas of racism, like racism is like here, maybe if you can even quantify it, right? Racism, and then I don't know, slavery, right? Like you can't just say, oh, okay, well, this bar higher. I'm like, say this bar doesn't even exist anymore. Just add it all on up. Therefore, you can let immigrants or let people, right? Like I think I should say people more. Let just people do whatever the fuck they want, even if it's illegal, right? And then I feel like there's kind of another layer into it, yeah, because earlier on I talked about, and I've struggled with this personally as well, like the idea of social versus human worth, and this is another like aspect of like holding, um, or differentiating, different values, right? Like different scales of worth, and holding them both at the same time, and letting both of them kind of live in each other's presence, without one being, more than what it is, or the other being less than what it is, right? Like you want them to exist. It doesn't have to coexist peacefully, but that's like in an ideal world, you want them to exist and hold them just as they are, right? you, politically, it's like if you see like kind of someone who's like extremely radicalized, right? Like what are they doing? Like what do you think Hassan is doing, or even like in some aspects, what do you think Asmongold is doing when like one of his core values is being attacked, right? It's like you don't really see it that often, because like Asmongold, he has a very good way of kind of convincing you. He presents himself in such a way that like whatever he says right now, and he probably knows this as well, he will get the majority of people backing him. And it, like, obviously it's not magic, but like I don't really understand, like personally I don't really understand that would look like, right? Because again, going back to the requirements, the idea of requirements, it is at the end of the day something, or a number of things, or a multitude of things that he's doing to kind of achieve that. But and I feel like that's kind of what um, people are getting frustrated over about, because some of the things that Asmongold says are just clearly extremely abrasive, but then he argues, like he backs that up so well that you kind of start questioning yourself, right? It's not impossible to debate against him, right? But it becomes very hard, right? And then inevitably when people do, and they're not really at that level of being in an argument where it's like it's only ideas that are fighting, not like people being performative, or people um fighting, like, not for the ideas, but like for like ego, right? Oh, fuck yeah, I fucking I stuck it out to Asmongold. Fuck that guy, right? So, but it is kind of frustrating because, like, when he pulls you up, it's obviously not an even like playing field, right? Because again, like, most of his stuff is performative. He is running a stream, and he pulls you up because he knows he can fuck you up, right? He knows he can make fun of you in front of like 30,000 people, right? He doesn't, like, I wouldn't say he doesn't care about the ideas that you're presenting, but he certainly doesn't do it in a very friendly or like non-biased way, right? And it's understandable because he gets a lot of like just obviously very radicalized people who kind of just want to stick it to him, right? When you're kind of dealing with that type of people, then it's not really arguing about ideas anymore. It's like, what do you expect him to do, right? He's going to do what he does best, and that's not argue with that type of nuance in mind. But it does I feel like set some sort of resentment, and it does kind of perpetuate. I mean, I think part of him knows this, and part of him like kind of wants it to keep happening because he makes content, right? He's outright said it himself. I'm like, he's gonna make as much content as possible out of people kind of just being a bad debater, or being extremely radicalized to a point where it's like kind of ridiculous, right? Like, debating skills are not up to par with their ideas, right? It's not really a pure just debate about ideas, and which I rarely think politics ever is. But that's kind of what needs to happen. It's a steep hill, right? I keep on talking about this kind of like nuanced model, or like letting things being exactly the way they are, or something like, oh, like holding both values at the same time. But like, keep in mind, like, I have a lot of trouble doing that as well, and especially when it hits so close, like for issues that hit so close home, right, emotionally, it's hard to not think in black and white. But that's not kind of what ideas are wrong to. It's more that they're be more efficient, I guess, in like progressing society, right? But I feel like maybe as a species, we're just not meant to, you know, do that, right? Like, it took me quite a while to kind of even think about this, right? Because like I was so wrapped up in, the black and white, thinking of like I'm entirely worthless, right, as a person after my relationship ended. That like I wasn't like it took me a long time to kind of see the entire picture, and even now, like as I'm, it's like what, like less than 24 hours when I turn 30. Like I'm still having trouble doing that, right? Like, but I believe it is the way kind of forward, right? I feel like it could probably be used in only be used kind of in a way to like calm you down, right? Like to not like over radicalize things. But keep in mind that like I feel like again it's literally like a ramble at this point. But what I've been talking about the being specific, right, or letting things being what exactly what they are. Like it's only really one of the tools or many tools in your toolbox, and you kind of have to decide whether or not it's the correct thing to use, right? Because there are some costs to using it, and you do need like I'm not because like if you think about using if you contemplate using contempt if you contemplate like for contemplate sorry if you contemplate using contemplation, then it's just another like you're just using contemplation at this point. So like it probably has to be like kind of a relatively quick decision. You don't really have to use so many calculations, but it is definitely one of the tools that you could theoretically apply to reframe, like if the trauma gets so bad, and like it did for me, right? Because like I wasted, not wasted, but like that trauma has consumed most of my 20s, right? Like 7 8 years, right? Or maybe a bit less, like 4 or 5 years, but it's definitely had a significant impact. I feel like that's probably a good call to understand the situation completely, and to kind of see that this tool is available, and kind of to use it everywhere where these situations kind of pop up, right? Like so that you don't really go down a rabbit hole of kind of doing things that you don't really want to do, like being radicalized into something that you might not really believe, or like just arguing on the internet and making yourself stressed by reading Twitter. That like does that really need to happen? And one of the tools is that. So I mean, before this gets too long, I do want to talk about the social um, um, worth versus human worth, because it's like an application of the tool, right? And I feel like it is relevant because I think some time ago I said that most of, if not all, the people who are radicalized on the internet have some kind of degree of taking things way too personally, like taking that idea way too personally. Um, so right, you know how like I guess like it's like a common saying, right? It's like, oh, okay, social worth doesn't matter. Like everyone is in their own race. Like it's not like you competing against others. It's you competing against yourself. Stuff like that. Like they try to kind of very oversell the idea that everyone is equal. That every human has the same worth, and I feel like it's true, but like again you're kind of using that in a context where it's like intellectually dishonest, because you're using it as kind of a rationalization, like an excuse to deny subjective um like subjective within a Western context um values, right? Like obviously if you are better looking, um and if you have more money, right, if you're more intelligent, more sociable, um, if you have more skills, if you're like, I don't know, Elon Musk or something, right? Like extremely capable, has multi-billion-dollar businesses running, like multiple of them, right? Like obviously that's he's worth is a tremendous amount in a social application, but then like does that mean he can rape people, right? Like I mean, honestly, like judging by the current law system, right? Like the rich do get away with a lot more than if you had no money, right? Like which is kind of just the reality of what the world is, but like in a moral context, right? And this is kind of again the application of the tools, right? What can you really say, like people with more social power like have more human worth, right? Because like human worth it's like a very basic thing, right? It's like, do your feelings matter? Do um I don't know, is it okay to say that you deserve less justice just because you're poor, right? Or you have less of something compared to other people, right? Is a power imbalance, does that often mean that, you know, whatever opinion that you have gets to like deserve to be shut down, right? I'm not saying like it doesn't functionally happen, because like essentially it does, right? Like a lot of things in life isn't fair, and it's mostly based on social value. But like understanding the distinction between, you know, social worth and human worth, that like you can like it's just an objective fact that every human, like in terms of like you know, a human worth, right? Everyone is equal. But like at the same time, socially not everyone is equal. Like you have your Elon Musk, right? It's basically just him, of the world, and you have, you know, everyone else, right? You can't really deny that subjectively he's worth more within like a Western context. But like, do you think he has more human worth than, you know, you or me, right? As what like sorry, Asmongold said, he's just a dude, and I feel like that's kind of what he meant, right? Like holding both at the same time. This is kind of sounding like a glaze, but again, I want you to think about it, like what I'm saying, within the lens of criticality, right? Like I'm dealing with the ideas that Asmongold sometimes presents, not like the person himself, right? Like, because like, what does supporting a person really mean, right? I don't really know him personally. I only really know, you know, what his ideas are presented, like what ideas he presents, right? So I can really only disagree or agree, like agree or disagree with his ideas, but not really as a person, because I honestly I don't really know what that looks like. I kind of try to depersonalize or like um, regulate myself with that. And I feel like it's the same thing with social worth versus human worth, where if you're able to hold both concepts, like knowing that human worth is objectively, like objectively labels every human as equal, but social worth doesn't, like kind of putting them exactly where they are, then you're kind of able to see, and along with the requirements, right? Because like Elon Musk, not because he's him, right? It's because he has a set of requirements that he met, which allowed him to create these companies, right? He knows a lot that you don't know, or he has a lot that you maybe not everyone has, right? Or maybe he was born into it, maybe he had some innate talent. You never know, but like there is always a list of requirements that he is meeting, and that's why he got where he is. Not it's not because he's him that he's there. It's because of these lists, right? And as soon as you kind of see that, or like depersonalize or like demystify his kind of social ledger, right? Like you're not writing it off, because he's still like he's still richer than any of us combined, probably, right? But it's not because he's him. Again, he's just a dude. And if you kind of start thinking it about this way, even if he's like worth tremendously more socially, you start to kind of see why that human worth makes sense, right? Because you demystified it. You, if you know how to get there, you can probably get there yourself, right? Um, Not saying that you could, because it is extremely hard, but it does demystify things, right? It does, um, especially within the context of like something being extremely unfair, right? Like the Lego scandal, right? If you have a huge company going against you, chances are they could probably just fuck you over with the law, which is what's happening right now. But it doesn't mean like obviously I'm not going to try to explain like the owner's son's frustrations and like all of the probably extremely negative feelings that because I mean the money is being used medically, right? And then now they're being denied, and each day that passes is probably another day that's it seals his dad's fate, right? Like that's something that he kind of has to deal with. But in another light, the company has all the requirements, and he's just one guy. Like, who do you think is going to win, right? Like, you can let the injustice happen without blaming yourself, or like saying that you're worthless or powerless, because that yes, you are powerless in this situation, but it's never, well, it's not never your fault, because like there has to be accountability applied somewhere, right? But you can at least let go of the pain that you're trying to carry because of the other party. You don't have to say that you're somehow worthless because the other party is just better than you socially. Because that's almost never the case in terms like when you talk about self-worth, that's almost never the case, right? Because self-worth is more based on human worth than social worth. Again, I'm trying to hold both sides like of the both sides of the comparison, right? Like bigger social worth does not mean that you have less human worth, right? And combined with the idea of yeah, I need a better way to formalize this, but combined with the idea of um, the requirements, right? That demystification is sometimes all you need to remove a large part of the pain away. I mean, it doesn't really give you an excuse to not do anything about it, but it does allow you to actually no, here's what it doesn't give you the excuse to not do anything about it. It kind of empowers you to do what you can, because now like instead of blaming yourself for this guy's immense social value over you, you're like, okay, I'm met with this situation, what levers can I realistically pull to get myself out, or is there even any? Because most likely there are. Like, I'm not trying to deny the pain that obviously the son is feeling right now, like his entire family is feeling, not just for losing the Lego sets, which probably was very important, but like to not even get their worth, right, their money's worth. But you know and I guess I don't really know what he's feeling. uh, he could be feeling exactly what I'm saying right now, and he is trying his best. Like he is mentally well adjusted, but like chances are he isn't, right? And I'm not saying like he's weak or anything, but it's just like what can you do, right? It's a stressful situation, so like the probabilities of him being not in a very good mental place is pretty high, right? And I hope again, like what I have kind of found out or like used my decade in my 20s to see can kind like I kind of hope like if you actually watch this video, like I doubt anyone is, but if you actually watch this rant, I hope that you're able to kind of just use what I'm saying to not entirely remove the pain, like to acknowledge the pain for what it is and discard the pain for what it isn't. Like you don't take responsibility for like um, the other party's unfairness, right? Like to put things exactly where they are and to kind of just do something about it, or like put yourself in a better position to move on, or like to consider your next steps. Like hopefully that's what you arrive at. And I feel like a lot of people on Twitter could use this as well to, because at the end of the day, like what I've said about I guess the beginning of my rant on politics, I think a lot of issues can be used, like it can you can apply this kind of thinking to, demystify the situation and to not, waste your time trying to advocate the idea in a less than appealing way, right? Like I'm not saying like Black Lives Matter is not a legitimate movement, or like ICE isn't, can't be criticized in some way, but I am saying that if you want it to be brought up, don't commit extremely radicalized, like don't do extremely radicalized things like violent protests, assassinations, and don't start, trying to bash people online. It's not that the bashing that I can't take, right? Or most people can't take. It's more of the like closed off mentality that people are kind of getting, the fatigue over, right? Try to think about things more critically. Try to see things exactly for what they are, and try to kind of hold multiple different perspectives, because like even a simple issue like I don't really have a good example on top of my head, but like take any of the political things that I've mentioned in my rant. Every one of them is gray. There's no like extremely right or extremely wrong side, because I for a fact believe that most things happen not because of malice, but because of some type of innate will to do good, but twisted in a way where it just presents super poorly. So there is something else that I kind of want to talk about. Like it's like an asterisk on the requirements, right? Like because there are some requirements that you can never, like it wasn't really fair for you in the first place, right? Like let's just say like aging, right? Time fucks you, like unless like biology has like some kind of way, like I think we're working on it maybe to keep your age at the exact same, because I know like there are some types of jellyfishes that can literally de-age, right? They essentially can live forever, but they're not immortal because like you can still kill them, right? But they live forever. Like when they get too old, or like when some parts of their body gets damaged, they can literally revert back to an infantile state and then grow up again. Like I'm not sure how, like obviously because like I'm not entirely too sure about the science behind that, or like how much they even studied regarding this jellyfish, but it's that in itself proves that within our DNA that's possible, right? Like, but I'm not gonna get into it because like I'm not really here to talk about jellyfishes, but time passes, right? Like there are different, in my early 20s, my muscles, right? Like, they have explosive power, and in my late, like I'm right now, I'm 29. Like I'm not old, but I'm not like that young compared to like someone who's in their early 20s either. And that does mean that I, don't meet the requirements. There are less, I believe like explosive muscle power, but more like endurance power in me right now, and that's just an effect of what happens when you grow up, right? It's like a biological thing where like I'm not saying, oh, okay, you can use my requirement lens. Um, oh, this guy is like omega billionaire, and you only have to meet these requirements like some kind of like in-game quest, right? You're doing like a WoW quest, and you're like getting all the materials, and once you hand that in, you're Elon Musk, right? That's not what I'm saying. What that is what I'm saying, but I'm also saying that some of these items are like time gated, right? Or like these are unfairly distributed throughout everyone, and that's kind of what evolution or like biology, that's how it works, right? Like evolution isn't here to like fuck you over, right? Like you toss the dice and you're born with like a certain set of genes that are not very suited to be very prestigious within like the Western context, and like can you really blame yourself, right? You just have less of a chance to become successful, more successful, whatever that means in the context, in that context. But like you got a set of cards, and I feel like you can acknowledge that you'll never be someone like Elon Musk, right? Because you don't really have all the requirements, but you don't have to like let that obvious social like canyon, right, kind of be the entire definition. Because like again, it's demystifying what Elon Musk have achieved in the first place. And if you demystify that, then um, you're not trying to make excuses for why you're not stellar, but you're trying to give yourself more of a fair grounds to, ask, was it really like how much of a chance did I really have? What's the exact like what exactly what levers do I have? Like what traits did I inherit, or like did I get born with, or like what are the good parts about being me, right? And then the only way forward, whether you like it or not, is to kind of just play the hand that you've been given, right? Like if you're 10, like let's just say you versus Elon Musk, right? You're 10% less smart biologically as a limit. Like obviously, like that's way too simplified, but if there's a 10% deficit between what you can produce and what he can produce, and I don't know, like the lived impact of it exactly matches that, or like matches that very closely, then can you really blame yourself, right? Like for missing that 10%? Can like I'm not saying it's like impossible to catch up to Elon Musk, but you're automatically 10% behind, so you have to put in more work. But like if you put in the exact same amount of work, he's always going to be 10% ahead of you, and you're always going to be 10% behind. But it's not even like that's just what happened biologically. It's not really your fault, right? Like you don't have to make the pain of that 10% more than it has to be, or you don't really have to blame yourself for rolling a crappier biological dice, because it's like the only like I feel like the only like the way where you try to like don't try this, because like you need a lot of um I guess mental fortitude and kind of like something that I probably will not have, or maybe I don't know. Like I'm probably a lot closer to it than before, at least in my early 20s. But you need a lot of what I'm talking about, right? Like the idea of letting things be exactly what they are, the idea of a list of requirements for every possible achievement, and the idea of holding both, multiple scales that are sometimes conflicting together, because that kind of encompasses the whole truth. Like you need to already have that as a superpower to kind of navigate comparison, right? Because then you'll be able to make a fair comparison, right? Because there's rarely there are rarely two people that have the exact same starting point. So like any comparison that you make without that kind of nuanced, um, adjustment factor is it's kind of moot, right? Because it you can obviously measure output, right? Like Elon will have a much better social output than probably 99.99% of us. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't born like with a significantly better dice roll than you. Like it could be like part of the explanation, right? But you kind of have to put that right where it belongs to kind of measure social worth, in my opinion. And that's very hard to do. And honestly, I feel like you probably shouldn't do this as well, because like chances are some somewhere down the road you will be able to kind of just, well, not you'll be able to, but you'll just kind of forget, right? You got lost in the sauce and kind of just collapse social and human worth together, and then feel extremely bad about yourself. But in reality, there are like unknown factors at play, unknown requirements that you didn't even know about that makes Elon Musk that much better. It's and that's why, like, even comparing yourself against yourself, right? It's like people change, right? And even if you don't decide to change, that doesn't mean that like you didn't change. You chose not to change. Your body gets older. You're kind of a slightly different person than you were 5 seconds ago, right? So it's very hard to compare in a very academic or scientific way, right? But I'm not saying like there's no value in comparison, right? Because it does push people to become better. If you're comparing in a very kind of playful, like a competitive or like a friendly rival type of way. But it does get, people, I feel like, do get more lost in the sauce than not, because it's very hard to do that, right? So again, not I'm not trying to cope, but like if you're going to do it, I would at least like comparison, right? Doing comparison is a huge steep cost that sometimes can like eat away like decades of your life, right? Like, I'm just saying, do it in a proper way where it's more constructive than not. So that was kind of my asterisk. Honestly, like I'm trying to speak at a meta level right now. Like me making this video is also some kind of like statement, right? Because I feel like what I have, at least in my 20s, like what I didn't achieve within the normal context, like work, I don't know, relationships, family, um, housing, prestige. I don't really care that much about money, but like job prestige, being famous, that kind of thing. I kind of made up with, developing this type of thinking, which it took me quite a while, and so far I've only seen like bits and pieces of it, kind of floating around the internet. I feel like the only person where I've seen like that has a relatively complete package is Dr. K, which is it's quite amazing to see, right? Like, because like you watch one of his videos, it's not even about the content that he's talking about. It's more of uh, the nuanced and the scientific way that he approaches most things, right? Without being, too much of like, I don't know, Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, right? Like where you're using your intelligence just as a tool to not rationalize anything, to kind of just place where things are, and that's extremely rare for, like, I've only really seen it in Dr. K, and maybe that's it. I've really not seen it in anywhere else, and it's kind of like it's an omega hack, right? Because like if you think about it, I, I think part of the reason why Dr. K got his fame or like even did well in his practice is because he has like some parts of, like, I'm not saying it's my engine, but like some parts of what I talked about, right? Because he and I kind of share a lot of views on not like what he's talking about, but like the way like he processes ideas, right? So it's really rare, and I do want to like capitalize or like kind of show off a bit of that, you know, thinking, because it's not really it's very hard to kind of describe in a way where I can convince people of like, oh, okay, this is some kind of clear advanced fucking jujitsu that he's doing or that I'm doing, but it is something I believe that is significant. And this video is kind of just like it's somewhat of a cope, right? Like, I'm about to lose my 20s. Here's what I did, and I hope that it makes up somewhat of, this time I've spent. Like I've obviously did other basically impossible feats, like academically. I came back pretty hard. I'm not really going to get into it, but that's kind of because of what I said here, right? Kind of mostly about the meeting the requirements. How can I leverage what I have um, to get where I want? What are the requirements I need to meet, and how do I meet them with what I have? Stuff like that. And I feel like if not, if I didn't record this video in my 20s, which I still am technically, right? I got let me see, how much time do I have left? I think I have, I mean, it's I was born in a different country, so I'm trying to do time zones, and I think I have. It's right now. It's literally less than 24 hours. We're going by like NA time, but I think it's 24 minus 5, right? It's 19 hours ish. Like if we're going by the time that I was actually born in my country, and I mean, never, like, clock's not gonna rewind, right? Even if we figure out eternal life, even if I'm like one of these jellyfish right now, right? If we're going by like strict time past, and I'm assuming that I get to keep my um, memories or something if I turn back into a baby, but that these 19 hours, right? Like, it's better that I recorded this video now than later, because it's probably the only lever I could possibly pull, right? I mean, yeah, it is uh, quite harrowing, I guess. When I kind of put it into that context, I know I'm sounding like a terminal cancer patient, probably overplaying it a bit, but I'm just gonna let it be, right? Because that's kind of how I feel right now. And yeah, it's a decade of my life. Um, doesn't mean I'm not proud of these ideas, right? They helped me basically achieve everything that's worth a lot socially in my 20s. And yeah, it is quite sad to say goodbye to that. So yeah, there it is. Um, I mean, I hope you gain some sort of, I guess, knowledge from what I've said. I hope what I've said makes some type of sense, right? Because I'm not a really good orator. Um, I don't think I have much experience, not any experience in video making. Hopefully, if if this doesn't get edited, which it probably won't, because I mean, I kind of want to post this um, before I turn 30. Um, so yeah, like hopefully, if you didn't absorb anything that I said, hopefully my voice has been soothing enough so that you could fall asleep to it. XD Lamau. But yeah, I'm sure I'll look back and kind of be proud of myself, I guess. But yeah, it is 19 hours. Uh, Quite a bit to hold, I guess. Well, hopefully I've helped you. Hopefully someone actually watches this. And I'll see you later.